How do you legally secure a site? Well, you apply for planning permission. If you've watched any of our videos on the site or been on any of our trainings, you know that we recommend finding sites that are off market. The reason for that is that generally on market sites just don't stack up and have no viability in terms of the build profit. So the build profit being the amount of profit that you would make with full planning permission being in place, which we recommend is about 25% of gross development value. But when you buy sites that are off market, then you can also share in the uplift in value that you produce by taking a landowner's site and increasing the value by gaining planning permission on it, and you share that. So essentially what you end up is two different profit centers. But going through that process, how do you ensure that all your time and money that you spent on that is not wasted? And you need to be able to do that in a legal contract. Now, a lot of people will suggest that you go for a conditional offer, and we highly recommend that you don't go for a conditional offer. And the reason for that is with a conditional offer, what happens is that the condition would be probably in this situation that it gains planning. So provided it gains planning, we will buy the site. And that's a very dangerous proposition. And the reason it's a dangerous proposition is a couple of factors. One is that the planners in the planning process may put onerous conditions on that site that make it no longer viable. In other words, there's not enough money in the project to make it viable. The second thing is that you can actually have conditions in there that while they're there, you can't actually satisfy them. And what would happen in that eventuality is that you've satisfied the condition of gaining planning on it, and so therefore you'd be obligated to buy the site. But because you can't satisfy the condition, you can't actually do anything with that site, and therefore you have a very expensive site that's got planning permission, but you can't actually build on it, and therefore you have an asset that's really pretty much worthless, and it has been caused you all the expenditure obviously to get it through planning, but the most important thing is that you can actually do something with it. And what I want to do just before I actually talk about how you should secure it and the benefits of that, I want to go through an example of a planning condition that happened to me where it would have been very difficult to satisfy. And in fact, it was the first development I did, so it was a very early lesson in my property development business, which I started in 2003, but then essentially started looking for land in 2005 and completed my first build in 2006. So this was the proposition of this was that it was a single build house, and I had found the land off market, and I was now applying for planning permission. And we went through the whole process, and one of the bones of contention and the objections, so we got 3 objections that came in, that the road was in such a condition leading to where this house that I wanted to build, that they were saying that this should be sorted. So if we just have a look at this Google map, and this is actually in 2009, so this is long after this happened, but essentially the road, as you will see here, is in a fairly poor condition as we go down the street, and you can see how this is. There's lots of potholes in here. And what the planners then said, okay, in light of these conditions or these letters of objection, and here's the completed house several years later, obviously, and so in light of those conditions, what they wanted me to do was to repair the road. So when we go back down this road, I just want to show you what actually happened here, because this was actually developed some years later, and you see these smaller houses. These are semi-detached cottage style houses, and there was actually 10 of these built in total. But what the developer in this situation did was that they developed 5, and then they developed a further 5. And what that allowed them to do, they wouldn't get away with it today, but what it allowed them to do was to circumnavigate a requirement to bring this road up to adoptable standards. So 5 or more houses, they would be required to bring this up to adoptable standards. So it was the residents of 3 of these houses that objected to me my planning application based on that this road should be improved. Not unreasonable, however, it was actually the developer that they bought the houses from that was the problem, and they should have really been taking it up with that developer. They probably did, but they were frustrated that they couldn't get anywhere with it. And so what the planner said was, well, what we would like you to do is just to fill the potholes on this road, and that will be good enough. So I agreed to that. It would cost me about £1,000 then to be able to do that. It was a case of bringing in a bit of tar and filling up. Wasn't going to solve the problem, in all honesty, but if it satisfied the planners, that would be fine. And then they came back to me and they said, oh, actually, because this is a private road, you need to get those residents permission to be able to do this. And I thought, okay, a bit of hassle, but nobody's going to object to me improving their road. Well, lo and behold, what I did was I got a letter to make it easy for them, typed out, giving my permission, and I went door to door asking them to sign this letter. And 13 of the 16 signed the letter, 3 refused to sign the letter. Subsequently, I managed to get 2 of them to sign the letter, so now I ended up with 1. And this guy, interestingly enough, actually happened to work for the council and was a lawyer for the council, and he absolutely refused. And he said, just go away. You're not going to be able to build this house. We're not going to give you planning permission. So I went back to the council and I said, look, here's the situation. I've now got 15 letters. I need 16. But this guy who works for the council, your organisation, will not give me the permission. And they went away and thought about it. And then they came back and they said, well, that's fine. What we'll do is that we will grant you planning permission, but we will put a clause in the planning permission that requires you to have those 16 signatures, which 15 you have. And so therefore I was in a situation now where planning permission would be granted, but I didn't have the ability to be able to build out that site because I needed the 16 approvals and I'd only got 15 and 1 was outstanding. And so therefore that was an owner's condition that I could not satisfy. And you can see now it satisfied the conditional offer in allowing me to be able to buy that site, but what it didn't allow me to do was to be able to satisfy that, so I would have been obligated to pay money for that site and then I wouldn't have been able to build it out. Now, interestingly enough, you might be thinking, okay, how did I get around it? So I went a couple of times to the local councillor and I got them on my side. They thought the thing was wholly ridiculous, and they went back to the council and said, this is ridiculous, you need to remove this clause and you need to make it a majority clause, which in fact I had the majority signatures. And so the planning came through and I was able to then build out the site. And the planning process actually took about a year in this situation, and that was one of the big hold-ups in the planning application. And what's interesting, I haven't actually visited this site for a long time. It's now about 120 miles, I think, away from where I live, maybe 140, I'm not quite sure. But if we actually look at the later, this is it currently, so at some point somebody has come along and basically put a proper tarmac road down, not obviously to adoptable standard. Don't know whether the residents clubbed together to do this, but however. So how do you get round that, which is the most important thing? We'll get back to the video in just a moment. If you're really serious about creating a property development business, then I would suggest that the next logical step for you would be to get a copy of my book, You a Property Developer. Simply go to the website of the same name, youapropertydeveloper.com. I'm going to cover the cost of the book. All I'm going to ask is that you contribute to the cost of the postage and packaging. Head over to youapropertydeveloper.com and pick up a copy now. So there's an important lesson, but how do you actually get around that? Well, what we recommend is option agreements. So an option agreement basically is you can put into an option agreement whatever you want to have in that option agreement. Obviously it's an agreement between you and the landowner, but whatever you decide can go into that. So generally when we are looking at sites, we go for option agreements, and we will go for a term of 3 to 5 years. And what that does in the option agreements, it says we've got the exclusive right over this site without actually buying the site, and we are going to go away and get planning permission. That's kind of not necessarily that relevant to the option agreement, but basically what you're saying to the landowner is, we want exclusive right over this site, and we are and then at the end of that period, if we don't exercise that option agreement, if it's let's say it's a 5-year option agreement, if we don't exercise the option to buy that site at the end of 5 years, then the site returns to you and you can do whatever you like with it. But we can, during that period of 5 years, we can exercise the option to buy it. So the beauty of that is that we apply for planning permission, and if everything looks good and we get the planning permission, all go ahead, then we can buy the site within the option agreement. And we can buy it within any of that period of that 5-year period. So one of the other benefits is, let's say you're doing a development and you're in the middle of that development, the planning permission comes through. Under the conditional offer, you'd be then obligated to buy that land at that particular site, but you're not really ready because you're working on this one. You don't want to run, say, 2 in tandem, and so therefore you want to complete this site, sell it on, release the capital, and then invest it into this one that you've now achieved planning for. So you can actually say, okay, I'm going to complete this, and then I will exercise my option to buy this, and providing it's within the 5 years, you're able to do that. So it allows you to time when you actually buy the site, which then, what the significance of that is, it allows you to build a land pipeline, so you can have one deal following on from another, so you don't have this gap between developments, and you can continuously develop. As one sold out, then you can move on to the other one, and you can move on to the other one. The other thing that can happen, and it's happened to me, is where you've got one site that you put in for planning, and then this is being slowed down for some reason, then you find another site and you put that in for planning, and then this one comes through first before that one. You kind of expect that one to come through first, but this one comes through first, so you make a start on that one, and then this one comes through halfway through this, but it means that you can then put that at the end once this one's completed, and then you can move on to the next one. So it's got a lot of flexibility. And then the other thing is, if planners put those onerous conditions on the site and it's no longer a viable proposition, then you can basically walk away from it. The other thing is that if it's maybe a project you no longer want to do, so maybe it was a single house build and now you're building 5 houses at a time or 10 houses at a time, and that kind of just is now just something you're no longer interested in, there's not enough in it for you anymore, you've progressed in your property development business, then you can actually, providing you put this clause into the option agreement, you can make it assignable to somebody else, and therefore you can actually sell the piece of land with planning and basically do a back-to-back sale where the owner then gets the proceeds, but obviously you've made a land uplift profit from that, so we both made a land uplift profit, but they're getting the amount that they agreed, so the landowner gets the amount that they agreed, you sell it for the amount that you agree with the new purchaser, and you make that profit in between, and you've never actually owned the piece of ground. Now sometimes you do need to pay £1 at least to register the option agreement, because that now needs to be registered with the land registry, but sometimes they will ask for a sum that needs to be used. They may ask for a sum for the privilege of the option agreement, and depending on what the site is, you might agree on that. It can be a small sum as £1,000 up to several £1,000s, but that's again part of the negotiation process. You can also, as we do, make that conditional on achieving planning permission. So if all your efforts end up in you not gaining planning permission, and you say paid a £5,000 option agreement, you actually get that £5,000 returned to you. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this, but it's definitely the way to move forward and build your land pipeline, make it much more secure, de-risk the whole proposition, and then have a successful outcome whatever the situation is, whether you end up having to walk away or whether you buy the site within the option period that you have within that. So if you'd like to take the next logical step in your property development journey, we do run a 4-hour training about once a month. You can find full details on that training at propertydevelopmentuk.com. That's propertydevelopmentuk.com. What we cover is the 2 main aspects of the property development: finding land, in other words, finding off-market land, and funding those deals. And the most important thing is that you find the deal first and then you fund it. And so many often people, that stops them getting into property development is they think they need to be able to secure the funds first before they actually secure the deal. The reality is that until you've got a deal, you've got nothing for any funder to look at it, whether it be a commercial funder or a private investor. So if that interests you, hop on to the website propertydevelopmentuk.com and join us. We do ask, incidentally, for a £99 fully refundable deposit, and that's just to make sure that we stop the tire kickers trying to join, because what they end up doing is they sign up for everything and they turn up for nothing. So we want to avoid that. We put a lot of effort into this program, and we want to make sure that serious people have an opportunity to join and ask questions as well. So if we clutter up with people that are not serious, then that really prevents the serious people getting their questions answered. So I would love to see you on that call whenever the next one is. I say go to propertydevelopmentuk.com and find out when the next one is. Take care, and thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you like this video, give us a like, and if you really like this channel, then share this video and share the other videos that you like on the channel. Take care, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye-bye.